You may have heard that over the weekend, thousands of people marched around the Motu against the New Zealand First Definitions of Gender Bill. You may not have as well. Media coverage wasn't massive. It took almost 24 hours for Radio New Zealand to briefly cover it on their website after all. The bill is problematic for a lot of reasons. It overrides the entire statute book. It creates direct conflicts with our modern human rights frameworks. It would modify Legislation Act 2019 and introduces massive legal vulnerabilities, creating loopholes to be exploited, and erases intersex individuals entirely in legislation. Legal scholars have called it a solution looking for a problem that causes direct harm to marginalised communities. It's practically unenforceable, a direct dog whistle to hard right culture war fanatics who fall for imported harmful disinformation and willing to put people in harm's way for ideological reasons. But the media coverage, well, that pretty much only covered the lots of people marched against the bill aspect of what was going on. Then Winston got on Facebook and did his best Trump impersonation, calling marchers a rent-a-crowd, mouth breathers, criticised people with a variety of flags supporting a variety of parallel causes, and claimed this bill was about protecting girls' and women's rights, freedoms and safety. And so far, the media hasn't seemingly covered this sundown moment. But it will end up in more of his electioneering because he's found a whistle he wants to run with. Electioneering this week that included time at the field days and announcing new candidates, more with connections to alt-right Christo-Nationalist Party New Conservatives, more conspiracy pushers, and a number of these candidates who are anti-abortion, who do not believe women should have the ability to decide what to do with their own body. One who called a woman a pair of and a while he vilifies and targets a small minority group to apparently protect women. That kind of contradiction is a core issue facing our media when it comes to New Zealand First, and most of our media seems to be getting it wrong, according to the latest research into how to combat political disinformation from manipulative players. You see, we have this constructed idea as to what media balance is that's pushed and promoted by the far right wing in particular because it means their views then get platformed. It's the idea of both sides of a story need to be presented to ensure balance. This has a lot of issues. It elevates ideology to fact in the eyes of the audience. New Zealand First Gender Definition Bill is a great example of that. The bill is harmful for a range of reasons, but it's also incredibly inaccurate scientifically. You can be born appearing female but have 5 alpha reductase deficiency and grow when puberty hits, or be born male with an X and Y chromosome but be insensitive to androgens, so you appear female. It's possible to be born with both X and Y chromosomes, but the Y chromosome is missing the SRY gene, which gives you a female body. You can be born legally female and your body doesn't produce enough cortisol, so your body develops as male. And there are a mountain of other nuanced approaches that show that gender is a non-binary issue and an oversimplified law won't change reality. But the way it's platformed in media, because of the both-sidism, many people then start believing that both sides of the conversation are equally as valid, when they simply aren't. And we've seen the hard right here go through official channels to punish media that do not meet what they consider fair representation. Like when Atlas Network CEO laid a formal complaint to the BSA over Mihi Nairangi Forbes' Mata Reports episode Trick or Treaty, which did not seek comment from the organisation with connections to think tanks and lobby groups all over the world, including the vast majority of the ones operating here for right-wing neoliberal policy pushers. Or when the hard-right subjects Fire and Fury, Stuff's documentary into the parliamentary occupation, complained about not being given direct rights to reply, which broadcaster Sean Plunkett then made the most of and gave those subjects a right to reply on the platform. And that's because there's a difference between neutrality and objectivity. And like actual media bias, most people really can't tell the difference, especially when considering media. And to be fair, most people in the media are actually trained to be neutral in what they produce. True objectivity, though, requires investigating the veracity of a claim, while neutrality prioritizes perceived balance above all else. It treats a debate as though it's a story. Neutrality only works if all participants are acting in good faith, though, and have equal regard for reality, which most of New Zealand First candidates announced so far clearly don't. So, when you both sides a debate for balance, one of those sides is using bad faith tactics like dog whistles or conspiracy theories, it then creates a fake balance that rewards those shitty people. A neutral reporter will say, here is what both sides of the issue say, and an objective one will say, one side has provided data and evidence, the other has given us another Trump-style rambling with no facts but big scary cultural war topics that their base think are facts. The way our media continues to cover New Zealand First is to treat the material from the party as neutral, to be balanced, instead of objective, which would highlight issues with the party policy that are clearly dangerous culture war talking points or based on conspiracy theories and disinformation. So far, the coverage we've seen of New Zealand First covers topics like buying back BNZ or splitting the gentailers even further in opposition to privatisation of state-owned assets. But we haven't seen much about the lineup of candidates and their links to extreme ideological views that target minorities in some way. The Nazi-like nationalism of policies demanding the correct name of the country be defined, or flag displayed, or English language used. Their use of pointless rhetoric, the word woke is bad, is literally straight out of the US president's playbook, and that doesn't get as much media coverage at the same scale as other policies, or when he attacks his own coalition partners, who are also the only parties he would work with. Even this week, while at the field days playing into the made-up story about a missing Labour stand that never existed, and out and about with candidates that the public have every right to be concerned with because of their views on everything from the rights of women to the need for another damned COVID inquiry until they get an outcome that allows them to threaten politicians again, the coverage was around Peters saying the Paris Climate Accord was too expensive, using numbers that are the worst case scenario if we did absolutely nothing, a tactic he's been pulling for years and seldom gets called up on, but it's incredibly misleading. Until our mainstream media start being more objective instead of falling for demands of being more neutral about what's on offer through from New Zealand First, well, we'll need to do the heavy lifting ourselves. After all, a number of media outlets need that sensationalism apparent neutrality creates through framed contradictions. You can always write letters to the outlets asking why conspiracy-laden rhetoric or cultural war talking points and Facebook ramblings are given a platform without a check on its factual basis. Why is something treated as a debate rather than an assessment of evidence? And if there is one good thing about the imminent demise of the BSA, it means that journalists like Mihi Narangi Forbes can present those deep dives into right-wing influences without having to give them balance, no matter how much they complain, because what she's doing is being objective, instead of neutral. Hello there, Kia ora podcast listeners. This one was a really weird episode. I actually recorded this on Sunday, and I don't know yet what day of the week it is going to go out, because who knows what this week has ahead, but I've got quite a bit of stuff I need to get made further on down the week, so I figured if I get this out of the way Sunday night, brilliant. But I went for a walk this evening, and I figured, beautiful sunset, autumn lovely weather and lights and colours, it would be nice to do something outside, and that's when I did a screw up. I know I did a screw up because I'm trying to find the bits that I clip onto this, and it's like, oh no, it wasn't a BSA thing, it was a media council thing. And they are different at the moment, and that's on me. I apologize for getting that wrong. But I was really annoyed when I made this video because I just sat down and read the transcript of Winston Peters' speech in Cambridge. Now, I'm not going to watch one of his speeches because I don't want to give him that much time, but sitting down reading the transcript, and it's just full of culture war bullshit, and the only news stories I could find on this were all about policies and candidate announcements and all the rest of it. And like his two candidates that he's announced, Casey Costello is not a surprise, Kevin Stone is not a surprise. That man is more New Zealand First than Winston Peters in some cases. They talked a little bit in there about some of the other candidates that have been announced, but nothing to do with their links to New Conservatives or their spreading of conspiracy theories. There's a whole bunch of stuff that media is missing, and I've been working really hard on how to frame this, because I know full well if you turn around and say media needs to be fair and accurate, people think that means media needs to be balanced. You've got to both sides everything. And that's fine if both sides are being honest and have a shared version of what reality is. But we're dealing with a political party that doesn't, or at least its members don't. Who knows what Winston actually believes? So media needs to switch from being neutral and balanced to objective and fair. It doesn't mean that they're doing anything wrong by being objective with how they point out some of the harmful rhetoric that he's putting out. And I really wanted to make that clear in this episode. I don't know if media will ever get a hold of this. They never actually message me saying, yes, they've read this and it makes perfect sense. I do keep getting messages from people who say things like, well, we're not allowed to talk about this. We've been given directives to do that. I've seen the text messages from Paul Goldsmith. I know what you've been told. It sucks. Like, it really does suck. But hopefully 5 more months, and then you'll actually get somebody in there who knows what they're doing, like Ruben Davidson, who's worked in media for many, many years and knows the secret of gunge on what now would certainly be a far more preferable option to a man who writes what they call hagiographies, which are basically books that are autobiographies but are like, oh my god, this person was the best, oh, I can't believe how amazing he was, about a whole bunch of weird right-wing figures like Don Brash and the Gallagher guy, Bill Gallagher, Sir Bill Gallagher. There's lots of Gallaghers in Hamilton. Sir Bill, the rich one, who built a castle and gave money to Hobson's Pledge. That Bill Gallagher. Anyway, that's it for this week. I need to go and record another episode now for some other point during the week, talking about just the fairly unwell mental health status of a bunch of Conservative leaders that they showed over the weekend. So I don't know, like I said, what order this will come out. Who knows, maybe this will be the one that you see first. Or second, I don't know. But I'll talk to you guys later. Live long, prosper, be one with the force, ka kite anō. Until next time, see you later.